Well, here with us is Rae Dove, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself and her experience with ETs. And I guess, didn't she write a book about that too? You might have to tell us more
Yeah,
about that.
transported to Talos.
Awesome. Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, let's see. I'm just an ordinary person. Grew up in a strict Roman Catholic family, lots of kids. I'm like one girl with six brothers. So I grew up with lots of brothers and doing outdoor stuff versus, what girls typically do, talking about makeup and Barbie dolls. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I was more of a tomboy, very outdoorsy, rode horses, rode motorcycles, got into art and teaching. So yeah.
When did you have your experience with ETs? I want to hear. I watched one of your YouTube videos kind of explaining what you saw. I want to hear more in detail.
Okay. All right. So excuse me, I'm getting over a cold here. I know it's California, but I still get colds. The weather goes under 60. I grew up in a Roman Catholic environment where, ETs and stuff like that were only talked about if you're watching a movie or something. You couldn't really talk about it. It like was non-existent. And I remember when I was, probably about 11 years old, and I was in charge of, because I was the only girl, I guess, I was in charge of babysitting all of my younger brothers instead of, and so one day my 3-year-old brother was outside and I was doing my homework and forgot that he had gone outside and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I wasn't watching him like I was supposed to be doing it. So all of a sudden he starts crying and screaming and running in the house. And he was 3, he couldn't talk very well. But basically, what I got out of him was that he saw a giant silver plate in the sky above him. That's what he called it, like a silver plate. Of course, that sounds like a UFO, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I remember calming him down and then getting in trouble because I wasn't watching him, and now he's seeing weird things and got scared. And I was told not to talk about it ever. Don't bring this up again. After I said there's a UFO out there, and I grew up with Lost in Space and Star Trek. Those are my
Mhm.
favorite shows, by the way. I don't know why, I just loved them. And so I didn't talk about it ever. And then in 2009, I was driving home from an art project that I had been working on. All of a sudden, I look up, and hovering over the houses was this huge football stadium sized UFO. Like it was emerging between layers. Like, how like a fade in and a fade out? It was like that. It had, and half of it was showing. I'm assuming it was only half of it. And it looked like a Battlestar Galactica. Like, I am not kidding. The sides were not smooth, they were in panels and worn looking, and it moved very slow. And the interesting about it is that another person saw it as well, and they reported it on the MUFON sighting site. They have a website where you can report UFOs. Yeah, so they reported it like the same day I reported mine, which I didn't find out till like a couple years later that someone else had seen it. So that validated it. But what's weird is when I saw it, I was in so much shock that I went, "What the?" And I beep, I said a bad word, and I don't normally say bad words, but I said a bad word. And I veered my steering wheel because I wasn't paying attention. I almost plowed into a mailbox on the road. So, and then what's also weird about that was I wasn't afraid. For some reason, I was excited and happy. And I started going after it with my car, which is a really weird response, right?
Yeah. Holy
So
shit.
and it disappeared over a hill and I couldn't catch up, and it probably just went out. But I kind of feel like I was meant to see it on purpose, and so was that other guy, because nothing is accident, I believe, and there are no coincidences. And I feel like that was conditioning me for more to come. And
Mm.
I think that happens to a lot of people, is that throughout their life, especially if you have a lot of weird experiences when you're a child, I feel like that's conditioning for you. And some take it very badly, but which is unfortunate. But for me, I for some reason I was excited. And then in 2013, I got really, really ill, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. And basically, what it was I couldn't eat. I just, every time I ate, I lose it. I couldn't drink. I could only do sips at a time, a couple bites at a time. So, in the course of about 3 months of doctors doing just every, they're like experiments, actually. They did every test
Mm.
and could not find anything wrong with me. And some of the tests were kind of invasive and horrible. And I had lost over 20 pounds, which I didn't have a lot of weight on me to begin with. So I was dropping under 100 pounds. So that one day I went to the doctors and he says, you can't eat. You're becoming anemic from not eating. You've lost too much weight, your skin and bones. So think about this. I'd like to put you in the hospital in the morning and go home and think about it.
Mhm.
So I went home and thought about it. And the weird thing that happened was I said no. I said no, I wasn't going to go to the hospital because I had this intuitive feeling. And I don't recommend this to everybody that's told to go to the hospital and they say, no, I'm not going. This is an individual decision I made that came deep from my soul, deep from my heart. It was very intuitive. And I said to myself, if I go into the hospital, I'm never coming back out again. That's it.
Mm.
And I believed that. So because of my religious background, which had actually gone from religion to more spiritual, because they aren't the same. I had stopped being a Catholic, recovering Catholic,
Mhm.
as they say. And I had become very spiritual and also had been following the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda from Self Realization Fellowship. I had been following his teachings for 25 years. I had been meditating by then
Mhm.
every day. And so my spiritual self made a prayer to God saying, I'm not giving up on myself. Just because I'm not going to the hospital doesn't mean I'm giving up and just laying in bed. I'm going to keep trying to make myself better somehow. But I need your help, God. And I prayed to him, not so much for a cure. That wasn't even on my mind. It was just for strength. I just surrender, like surrendering to God, like, what is your will?
Mhm.
And of course, to me, God is more source than an individual person, God. By then, it had become like that. So I went to bed that night, woke up under an operating table. So I don't know for those that have had surgery before or under any procedure, when you open your eyes um, after surgery, sometimes the lights on your operating table are still on,
Mhm.
and you're kind of in and out of consciousness. So I opened up my eyes and I saw this light on me. And I thought, and it had the feel and smell of sanitation, very clean. And there was someone to the left of me dressed in white, which is at the time when I woke up, I didn't realize that it was a really, really weird doctor's uniform that I've never seen before. It was strange looking. So I woke up and I looked around, and probably within 3, 4, 5 seconds, I started to get up with my head and realized that, wait, I'm not due for surgery. I wasn't supposed to go to surgery. I went to bed. What's going on? And I'm trying to fix reality in my head, what's going
Mm.
on. And then I looked over at the doctor, and he was holding an instrument in his hand that was probably about this long. What is that, about 15 inches? And it was cylinder. Um, Kind of shaped like that cylinder, not round,
Mhm.
but like that, flattish on the top, with lights around it, little tiny lights. And he was scanning it back and forth over my abdomen. And I thought, wow. And then I started to panic because I realized that he was wearing kind of snug fitting white clothes, and he had a snug fitting hood, like none I've never seen. No doctor wears like a hood like this, wrapped down around you. So I realized I'm on a spaceship. I just knew it intuitively. I'm on a spaceship. What's going on? I started to panic apparently. And so at that point of panicking, I felt a large hand on the back of my head pressing on it, and I fell back out of consciousness again.
Hmm.
Um, then I started to wake up again. And this is when I woke up because I heard talking, but I didn't understand the language and I didn't understand the tones. And then the talking started coming into me telepathically. But I don't think they were talking to me. I think they were talking about me, the ET physicians, I want to say. And I heard them uh, look down at me and say something to the ET behind me. Immediately, he put his hand on the back of my head and knocked me out again. So I'll just say that I woke up again. And when I woke up again, I was being dropped onto my bed from probably about 1 or 2 inches up, just bump back on my bed. There was a blanket back over me. My dog was on the floor asleep, which is weird because she's always on my bed. I don't know what happened to her. She didn't know what was going on, just sleeping on the floor. And and I remember when I was dropped back down, I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I started to get up again and I telepathically said it. I don't think I was saying it verbally. I said, because I felt their presence. I still felt them close to me because I am a little bit telepathic and I've always been that way, very sensitive. He said to me in a very slow male sounding voice, stay off your feet a few days. And then he disappeared, not visually, but just his presence disappeared.
Hmm.
Um, and then the weird thing is that I slept until like 10 or 11 a.m. that morning, and I'm an early riser. So that was weird that I was so exhausted that I slept in so long, and so did my dog. So yeah, so I got up out of bed, and as I got out of bed, like still feeling super droggy, and I felt a tinge of pain in my abdomen, and I thought, that's weird. What's that feeling? And I looked down, and I saw like a 1 inch line, like a scar that was kind of yellow goldish in color, and I started like going into shock. And I thought, I need to take a picture of this to prove to myself, not to others, to prove to myself that I was just taken on board and they did something to me. You know, at that point, I didn't know I was healed yet. I just know that I was operated on. Then I suddenly felt really hungry and I went to the refrigerator, opened it up, which was mostly filled with puddings and yogurt, stuff I could eat. And I just started eating toast, eating yogurt, eating
Wow.
tapioca pudding.
Wow.
And I suddenly realized after eating for half an hour, filling up my stomach, that, oh my gosh, I'm not sick. I feel great. And then it started to sink in that I was super joyous that I had somehow been fixed, cured, and at the same time in shock, scared, shocked. So I remember going back to my room and just sitting on my bed for 2 hours, just like in shock.
Huh.
But then, of course, your human body gets hungry and thirsty and you start moving around again. But yeah, for 2 whole weeks, I was just in this state of eating in shock, not really scared, just in shock, like just all these weird things. Oh, and one of the number one things going through my head too was I was taught that religion and ETs don't go together. It's not in their belief systems. So just subconsciously, I was fighting with that there's God and then there's ETs beyond humans. Because, most religions don't teach that. That's something that was conditioned into me. And it had suddenly been ripped open and a whole new paradigm of thinking was going on. So, yeah, so 2 weeks after that, something weird happened. Oh, and before that, I was going to say that a day later, the following day, this black helicopter started hovering around my house, and I didn't think anything about it. The helicopter came back 3 days in a row, and I thought, that's really weird. And I even filmed it one time, like, because it was so close to my window that my windows would rattle. And I just thought that was kind of weird. And then I thought, something did happen and somebody else knows about it. And that kind of just not didn't scare me. It just kind of irritated me, like I'm being irritated by these helicopters. Then 2 weeks later, after this, that I was healed, I woke up in the middle of the night because I felt like somebody was staring at me. And it's kind of like if you anywhere in public and you suddenly think somebody's staring at me, if you're sensitive, you know. So that's what it felt like. So I started to open my eyes and suddenly realized I was paralyzed. And I looked at the door, my doorway, and there was like I would say what resembles what people call a gray alien. And he had three fingers kind of wrapped around the door. I could see his long grayish fingers. And there was enough light to see because I have this outdoor sidewalk lamp that shines, kind of lightens things. And then I felt the presence of another one at the foot of my bed, and I freaked out. It was the only time I've ever been totally freaked out from seeing an ET, an extraterrestrial, or off-world visitors. I was so scared that again I start praying to God. And at that point, I don't know what happened, but they just pulled back and disappeared. They didn't want to have anything to do with me after that. And I kind of feel like after I thought about it and calmed down that I wasn't in danger. I kind of felt intuitively they were more like scientists, like checking up on me, like maybe not even having nothing to do with the ones that healed me. They just saw a commotion, detected a commotion, and was curious about me.
You told us about the ones that touched you on the back of your head and it knocked you out. So you were knocked out by only the touch, right?
Yes, but it's not just the touch. I'm sure it had something to do with some type of energy. It was energy because if you look it up, and I remember on board the ship, I heard the word cerebrum as they were doing it. And if you look up cerebrum, it's the part of the head, I believe, that if you bump somebody or you fall backwards and hit your head in a certain spot, it renders you unconscious. So I think it has something to do with that technique.
Well, that story was terrifying. Like I would be terrified if I were you.
Well, you know, it's kind of like they saved my life. Literally, they saved my life. It's kind of like they were sent to me by God. So yeah, I was scared, but the trade-off was they saved my life.
Sure.
And I lived to talk about it.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. No, again.
Yeah.
And you wrote a book about it. That's really cool.
Well, that's a book about another experience because after I had this experience for a year after that, so we're talking 2014 to 2015, I started having monthly sightings of daytime sightings, mostly of craft in the sky, kind of like a large mothership shaped like a tic tac oblongated. I can't think of the right word. Tic tac, and there was like little smaller ships around it, and it was really, really high up, probably 60, 70,000 feet up, and it was just hovering. And there was a plane below it that was circling, and it was like a white Cessna. I saw a lot of white Cessna, so I believe that those are used also to try and track our UFOs. Those innocent-looking Cessnas. Right. And then another time, another sighting was an orb. It was probably about 5-6 feet in diameter, kind of shiny and glowy, like a ring light. You know, like your Facebook ring lights, kind of glowy like that, a soft glow. And the interesting about this incident that I saw was I also witnessed with a member of my family who was an aeronautics expert working for subcontracted by NASA. And he was with me. And we were, you know, talking about these UFO air balloons, UFO balloons that they shot one down. What's weird about this is it got me thinking that I would bet you that not only was that Chinese balloon floating around over the US, but it was also not only being surveyed by the United States, it was being surveyed, watched by ET intelligence as well. And this is why and perhaps they even picked up on that. You know, the US picked up on that and saw it. And the reason I'm saying that is because this experience I had with this weather balloon with my relative is very similar. I was at their house and I was outside kind of looking at the flowers and stuff, taking pictures. And suddenly I saw a weather balloon, which I thought was a weather balloon. And I'd never seen one this large before. And it was coming over the top of a hill because their house is up against a hill. So it was very low, and I could see dangling from it a large box. Now, I've seen weather balloons before, and they're usually kind of amateur student stuff. This one looked really high tech. So I called my relative out there, and he's looking at it and goes, that looks like it's a military balloon. And they're gathering some kind of weather information. Who knows what they're gathering, doing their jobs. And he just said, the relative, that looks very military, but and it's very high tech. What was weird was that it was stuck in an air draft because it had come over the hill, and it was stuck just hovering over their house and the other houses for like 20 minutes, just barely moving. So I was out there for a long enough time to get a binoculars and look at it. And then it moved over to the front of the house. So I went outside with my relative, and I was looking at it with the binoculars. And here's the part that's weird. As I'm watching it, all of a sudden in the binoculars view, I saw one of those glowing orbs, and it was coming straight towards the balloon at the same altitude, but in an S pattern, kind of like this pattern, it was kind of woo, 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 going towards the balloon. And when it got to the balloon, and I'm looking with my binoculars, when it got to the balloon, this orb kind of buzzed around it like a bee would buzz around. It kind of went like, say, here's the balloon. It kind of went like this, and then went joo, 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 and then it took off again. That's what this orb did. And this orb felt to me intuitively like it was made of technology, yes, but also was being powered telepathically by a presence, an ET presence. And I felt from them that they had this emotion of curiosity, like deep curiosity, yet not excited, just concerned curiosity. That's what I intuitively felt from this orb. And when I'm looking at it with the binoculars, I kind of elbowed my relative, and I said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And he goes, yes, I'm seeing it. Now, mind you, he's an aeronautics specialist for NASA. And he said that what we were looking at was definitely not from this world.
Wow.
So I was having experiences like that for another year and a half. And after that, which, remember I told you about growing up and you're having experiences that it's conditioning, that I felt like this was a year of conditioning for me, not to be afraid. Because sometimes I'd see something weird in the sky, and I'd almost always actually run after it with a camera.
Yeah. There's people that never see a UFO in their whole life. And there are people, we hear that a lot, who see UFOs all the time. Why do you think this is happening to you? Why do you think you see so much of these things?
This has been a question for a long time in my mind. And it's the same exact question that so many experiencers have, is the big why me? And there's different reasons for it. One, and I get some of this information from a very well-known ET contact person called Sixto Paz Wells. And he's with the Rama mission ET contact groups that come out of Peru since the 1970s. And they're all over the world now, along with CE5, which is the English-speaking groups. But Sixto Paz Wells kind of explained this, and it made intuitive sense to me, because it's such a big question for everybody, is why me? One of the first reasons is possibly because in a previous life experience, and I'm not saying necessarily reincarnation to Earth, but a previous lifetime experience somewhere in some dimension, sometime between lives on Earth, maybe even, you've had already met extraterrestrials of the same species that are visiting you. And of course, you hear all this about people saying, well, I'm Palladian. Well, maybe, yeah, Palladian in another lifetime or another experience. And then you were seated here on Earth. I know you've all heard that. There's probably some truth to that. So that is one of the reasons, is you had previous experience already of UFOs and ET contact. And then the other reason is because the world is in need of some assistance. Why would ETs want to assist Earth? Because they have, as you would say, a stake in it, not for any kind of malevolent gain, but for benevolency. Perhaps even they feel responsible for us, because I also believe through my experiences that all of us have some off-world visitor ET DNA within us, that it's all part of us. And you've heard of that too with people that have had, that say A negative blood is alien DNA. Well, I have relatives that are A negative and I'm A positive. So, I mean, you can read into it what that is. But whatever their reasons, I believe there are so many off-world visitors and different races and species that are assisting us. But there's this rule of no interference for some reason. Maybe it's a universal rule, kind of like Star Trek, you know, no interference unless they're warp age, kind of like that. So what they do is they're coming to help some of us, and some of these ETs are very highly advanced spiritually, or highly awakened, you might want to say, and also definitely higher evolved technologically. And technologically, I'm not thinking in terms of, you know, like Apple Watches and new technology. I'm thinking the kind of technology that is biologically based, where science meets spirituality, and spiritual experiences will eventually all be explained through biology, quantum physics, and beyond. So thus, what they do is these ETs are giving certain people experiences, and they're picked as ones that they feel will have, are more likely to do something with their experiences, such as one of you. If I don't know if you have ever had phenomena experiences before, and you might have to say, why me? Well, odds are, with your guys' personalities and ambitions and endeavors, creative endeavors, you are more likely than the person down the street to take this valuable information to help condition the world and do something with it. Exactly what you're doing. You're doing a podcast. So they're picking people that are therapists, doctors, artists, writers, people in film. They're choosing people like that are more likely to do something with it. Now, when I started having experiences, I wasn't really a writer, but it was in my soul and I never let it out. So it was a discovery for me.
It's funny that you said that, because we just had a conversation before you got on about like how we kind of fell into what we did or start to do now. We both had an experience. He had one when he was 16. I had one when I was in my 20s. But then again, started doing this podcasting was kind of like getting the ball rolling into the subject, and like we had that background. So yeah, it's just pretty funny that you just mentioned that, and we just had that conversation.
How did the whole thing affect your life and change your life? What happened after all that stuff happened to you?
Well, how it changed my life, I'm still figuring that out because more and more stuff happens. So, for one, the paradigm shift of everything I thought I knew about the world around me was not what it was. I mean, when you grow up a certain way with limited belief systems, I don't mean to be offensive to any religion or anything else, because I do value religions, all true religions, because religions can lead to spirituality, and spirituality is the goal, not religion. And again, I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes religion, as in my case, was a stepping stone to my spiritual beliefs. How it changed me was, again, paradigm shifting of my belief systems. And I'm still trying to figure out how it's changed me, because I've had an experience that most people that have had ET experiences don't seem to have, or they don't talk about, is that it affected me spiritually. And by spiritually, I'm also saying acknowledging that spirituality is, someday we'll all learn that spirituality is, and the experiences that we have that are spiritual can be explained biologically through, beyond quantum physics, and I don't know the term for that, that they can all be explained. And I don't want to put down spirituality, but spirituality is something that affects the soul and spirit in a positive way. That is spirituality. And so it's changed me in that way, because I have met ETs that are so freaking spiritual. Maybe not spiritual like, well, yeah, maybe some of them. Yeah, like monks, that are meditating all day, but they're not meditating all day. They just have it. They're in this state of consciousness that is so high that it affects you when you're near them. And if your vibration or state of consciousness is low when you meet some of them, you can get nausea, you can feel sick. The electrical vibrations going through your body can frighten you and scare you. But as you raise your own consciousness in spirituality, or just your vibrations, you're able to handle ET contact much better, especially by highly advanced spiritual, I say ET guides.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it's changed me. And not only that it's changed me so much, and other ET contact people that have had a lot of contact have experienced the same thing that I will bring up, which is considered taboo in many places around the world, except India, is an ET guide partly facilitated a Kundalini awakening in me in 2015. And that again was paradigm shifting and changing, because your whole reality is in a different world, a different reality, the true reality of what's really going on. So that's how it's really changed me, is spiritually. And that's what I like to talk about, I suppose, except that I understand that most people, or many people, hear the word spiritual and they're allergic to it, or they think it's awoke people and awakenings. But for me, it's nothing like that, because for me, the spiritual awakening is being in tune with the whole universe in a high state of consciousness, which proves to you that it's all science-based too. Science and spiritual, there's a connection.
Interesting. On your YouTube channel, you talk about numbers, and this topic is somewhat related to what happened to you. Tell us more about this one.
So with my Kundalini awakening, you have many more weird phenomena experiences. You can call them spiritual, or you can just call them biological experiences. So what many people start seeing is this phenomenon where they see numbers. In fact, the first time I saw numbers was probably back after I was just before I was visited for the first time in my room by an Arcturian person. I actually painted his picture here. This guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Just
I
like
think he
me.
looks kind of Native American, actually.
Yeah.
It was just before he visited me. I was woken in the middle of the night for no reason, wide awake, like it was daytime, but it was in the middle of the night, well, early morning. And I remember looking at my clock, like confused, like what's going on? Why am I up? I look at my clock and it says 4:44. It was 4:44. And I intuitively, of course, knew that this was on purpose. These numbers were on purpose. I was to wake up, and now I have to figure out what the heck that means. So, of course, I'm online searching 444, angel numbers, guidance. But mostly for me, it's safety and guidance and protection. That's what it means for me. It can mean something for someone else too, and that's also valid. But then I went to Starbucks that morning, still thinking about 444. Go to Starbucks, and the guy tells me the amount, 444. And I look at him and I start laughing at him. And he's like, what did I do? And I'm like, 444. And he's like, uh-huh. And then I went to the grocery store. And again, the receipt was something with 44 in it. And I again, like, what? And the guy's going, hello, 44, 440. And I'm like, so this happened 3 times in a row. And so that kind of got me into, what does this all mean? And you do a self-discovery, and you're searching the internet. Thank goodness for the internet. And so after years of having these numbers, because then you get 1111. Most people wake up with 1111 a lot. That's the most popular number, which is angels and guidance. And those can change. So now I usually just get 777, 777. And 777 is manifestation, where this age of Earth goes from wishful thinking to manifestation of your thinking. So we can manifest easier now. We can get whether it be a few more dollars, or whether it be a new type of awakening that you're wishing for, whether you want to help cure yourself. That manifestation is now an energy coming onto Earth that we can tap into and embrace.
Yeah.
So that's the numbers. And the number systems work in a couple of ways. Number one, historically. So they gain power historically. So for example, 1111 and the number 33 is in the Bible a lot. So people saw it, read a passage, what it means. And over the ages, so many people look at the number 33 or 1111 and have a certain thought about it, that puts it out into the universe and empowers that number to be that way even more in a positive way. So that's one way. The other way is that the ET guides is that they will purposely, or if you want to call them your guardian angels, they purposely put those numbers to appear around you to wake you up. That's what they're for.
There's a few numbers following me around.
Oh, good.
It's the 23 and the 93. Do you know what that means?
I'm looking it up. 20. So 2 plus 3 in 23 is a 5. 9 plus 3 is 12. 1 plus 2. So your numbers are 3 and 5. 5, the number 5. And when I tell you this, it's different for each person. So for example, the number 5 will mean something different to you than to, say, somebody else. Because we perceive things based on our own experiences and our own journey. So in general, the number 5 is progression and moving forward towards a particular goal. It urges you on to realize your goal and head for that goal. And when you see the 5 or 555, or even the 23, which is kind of like it's a special mystery code just for you, because you're seeing it as 23, not 5. Well, the number 3 is the number, is the triad, which is a spiritual awakening number. I'm sorry if you don't like that. And then the number 2 has to do with your heart, not physically, but spiritually, heart, the love. So if that means anything to you, coupled with the 5, and I hope I don't confuse you, but it looks almost like your journey, your path moves forward following your heart.
It fits. I love to progress. I love to move forward with my projects and stuff like that. So that fits in some kind of way.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. We were just talking about that too. How ironic.
Yeah.
So do you have numbers too, Dustin?
Well, I have a lucky number. Does that count?
Absolutely.
17 is mine. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's a good number too. All right, so 17. First of all, you have the number 1, which is source or God. Number 7, as I said, manifestation. 7 and 1 is 8, which is 8 or 444. This is more of a path set down by ET guides more. It is protection and guidance, possibly by ET guides. 7 is manifestation, learning and practicing that what you think is what happens. It used to be before this this age, Earth's age, a third dimension, kind of we're moving more into the fourth dimension in consciousness as a whole. That people would, oh, I wish I could do this, and God, please, please, please do this for me. Now we're into the age where you are the God within, and you can manifest this yourself with mind power and your heart combined.
I like that.
It's
Don't you have
interesting.
that? Don't you have that tattooed on your neck?
Yeah,
Or is that
I have it. 93.
Oh, you do? Oh,
Yeah.
that's neat. So 9-3. Yeah, and 9-3 has a lot of threes in it. And a lot of threes is about Earth. Earth is like the 33rd planet that is protected by ET guides. So all these threes, which means that the work you do probably will be in some way having to do with ET guidance in some way.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Interesting.
you might want to also look into or interview someone from the Rama mission, if you ever heard of it. Have you heard the Rama mission?
No.
No. Can you tell us
Okay,
more?
so have you heard of CE5?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so CE5 is the English thing, is English speaking groups that are ET contact. Started also in the 1970s. And around the same time, Sixto Paz Wells in Peru started the Spanish speaking groups called Mission Rama. So look into them. You might find something you like in that. And you can look up Sixto Paz Wells. And I've written several articles about Mission Rama. I have a YouTube channel that I'm not, that I've kind of archived for now, called the Pete and Rae Pathways Show. And in the Pete and Rae Pathways Show, I did a video, little mini documentary about the Mission Rama ET contact that you can like watch that and kind of get started on it.
Oh, sure.
see what you like, find someone to interview.
Yeah. Sounds interesting. I will look into that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Rae, to round up this episode, tell us a little bit more about your YouTube channel and what you want to achieve with it.
My current YouTube channel is Rae Dove, and it is centered around the unusual contact that I'll call unusual that not a lot of people are talking about. It is, I want to do more episodes about close encounters of the spiritual kind, which I'll also be bringing in more talk about spirituality meeting biology and science. So that's what, and then in the meantime, right now I did write one book called Transported to Talos. Here's the book here. You can get that on Amazon. And this was in 2020. I had an experience in Mount Shasta where there's been a lot of ET sightings and experiences there. And I was actually taken from my tent one night in 2020 and taken to what I thought was mythological, not really real, a place called Talos in Mount Shasta. And had a talking to, kind of like a lecture from a, what would you call them, a Talosian lady. And the Talosians that live in a different dimension around Mount Shasta, maybe fifth dimension, is that they look like us.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
in the book, I write about more about them because it's very popular. You know, a lot of people talk about Talos. Again, paradigm shifting. It's like if you never believe in Bigfoot, and then one day you're walking through the forest and you see Bigfoot, and it's not someone in a costume, it's real. That's paradigm shifting. So this is what happened when I went to Talos.
Interesting.
And then I'm also writing another book about my healing, which I'm working on right now. And the name of that book is When God Sent Me E.T. So that'll be out hopefully by the end of the year or so.
Okay. Sounds interesting. We will,
Yeah.
of course, we will put some links of your books and your YouTube channel into in the description, so people can find you. That was very interesting, Rae. Very
Yeah.
interesting, and thank you
Yeah.
for being our guest today.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. You guys are cool.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.